I heard you call my name last night in your sleep. You've been doing that a lot lately, whispering Jasper into the darkness like you're searching for me. I wish I could tell you that I'm still here, just not in the way you're used to. Not warming your feet or leaving fur on your black sweater, but here all the same. They say cats can't write letters, but what do they know about the spaces between heartbeats or the weight of a gaze that's lasted 15 years? So here I am, telling you what I never could before, that I saw everything. The tears you hid from everyone else, the small victories you celebrated alone, the way you talked to my photograph when you thought no one was listening. You weren't the person I expected to spend my life with, Eleonora Mitchell of 247 Sycamore Lane, Millbrook, Connecticut. But life has its own ideas about where we belong. I still remember that Tuesday in April when you found me. It was raining, not the gentle kind, but the angry sort that turns gutters into rivers. I was huddled beneath the metal stairs behind Harmon's pharmacy, more bone than body, fur matted into clumps that pulled at my skin. The vet later told you I was about 3 years old, but the truth is, I had no idea. Street time doesn't measure itself in years, just in hunger and fear and brief moments of respite. You weren't looking for a cat. That's what makes this story worth telling. You were 62, recently retired from teaching high school English for 38 years, and you'd just moved back to your hometown after your divorce was finalized. You were carrying paper bags of groceries, the kind that go soft in the rain, and you had that determined walk of someone who has somewhere important to be. But then you stopped. I didn't meow or approach you. I'd learned that humans who want to help and humans who want to hurt often look the same at first. But you set down those bags right there in the rain, getting your sensible shoes all wet, and you crouched down with a groan that told me your knees weren't what they used to be. "Well," you said in that voice I'd come to know so well, "aren't you a sorry sight? I expected you to leave after that. Most people do. They acknowledge the sadness and then walk away from it. But instead, you took the sandwich you just bought and placed half of it near me. Not too close. You understood boundaries even then. I'm not taking you home," you said firmly. "I'm just making sure you don't die behind a pharmacy. That would be undignified for both of us." You waited while I ate, standing there getting soaked, grocery bags darkening with water. Then you left. I thought that was the end of our story, but you came back the next day, and the next. On the 4th day, you brought a carrier. "This isn't permanent," you informed me as you gently pushed me inside. "Just until we find you somewhere suitable." What you didn't know then, what neither of us knew, was that suitable would turn out to be the spare bedroom that became mine. The windowsill where I'd spend my mornings watching birds, the specific spot on your lap where I fit perfectly while you graded papers, and later when you retired, while you read those mystery novels you loved so much. I wasn't an easy cat at first, Eleonora. The vet bills from those early months would attest to that. The respiratory infection, the parasites, the broken tooth that needed removing. I flinched at sudden movements. I hid when the mailman came. I woke you at night with my pacing. "You're a project, Jasper," you'd sigh, but you'd say it while scratching behind my ears. So I knew it wasn't really a complaint. You named me after your favorite author, Jasper Fforde, because, as you told Mrs. Abernathy from next door, he's peculiar but compelling, just like his namesake. I didn't mind. It was the first name I'd ever had. Do you remember how I used to bring you gifts? Not birds or mice. I'd never been a good hunter. But bottle caps and pencils, and once, mysteriously, a single earring that neither of us could explain. You'd thank me solemnly each time, placing my treasures in that small ceramic bowl on your dresser. Jasper's Findings, you called it. I wonder if it's still there. That first year, we established our routines. You'd wake at 6:30, make your coffee, black with just a touch of honey, and sit at the kitchen table with your crossword puzzle. I'd join you, sitting in the chair opposite, watching you frown at 6-letter words for dismay. Sometimes you'd read clues aloud, like I might know the answer. 7 letters. A safe place. you'd mutter. I'd blink slowly at you, and sometimes you'd suddenly smile and say, "Home, of course." And you'd write it in with that blue pen you always used, never pencil, because you said life was too short for erasers. You spoke to me more than you spoke to most people. At first, they were just observations about the weather, about the book you were reading, about how the arthritis in your hands was acting up. But as months became years, you started telling me the deeper things, about how you never wanted children but sometimes wondered who would remember you when you were gone, about how you still missed teaching but not the politics of it all, about how your ex-husband Harold had called on your birthday, and it had been nice but left you feeling hollow afterward. "The problem with getting older, Jasper," you told me once while we watched snow fall outside the living room window, "is that the world gets quieter. People stop asking what you think. They assume you're done becoming who you are." I pressed my head against your hand then. I wanted to tell you that I saw you continuing to become more yourself every day. How you'd started taking those photography classes at the community center. How you'd begun wearing those colorful scarves you'd always loved but had put aside during your teaching years because they weren't professional enough. Our life together had a beautiful ordinariness to it. We didn't have grand adventures or dramatic moments. We had Tuesday afternoons when you'd doze off reading, your glasses sliding down your nose, and I'd curl against your side, syncing my breathing to yours. We had summer evenings on the porch swing, you with your iced tea, me watching fireflies blink on and off like stars coming down to visit. We had winter mornings when you'd wrap yourself in that patchwork quilt your grandmother made, and I'd burrow underneath until just my head poked out, and you'd laugh and call me your little submarine. These aren't extraordinary moments, I know, but they're ours, and that makes them worth remembering. I was there the day you got the call about your sister Margot's cancer diagnosis. You sat on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to your ear, saying very little. When you hung up, you didn't cry right away. You made a cup of tea first, Earl Grey, your comfort tea. You added milk and sugar, which you never did normally. Then you sat at the kitchen table and stared at the steam rising from the cup. I jumped into your lap then, something I rarely did without invitation. You buried your face in my fur, and that's when the tears came. You cried so quietly, always trying not to disturb anyone, even in your grief. "She's my little sister, Jasper," you kept saying. "She's 4 years younger. It's supposed to be me first." I stayed with you all night. You didn't sleep. You made lists instead. Doctors to research, treatments to ask about, ways you could help from a distance. By morning, your eyes were swollen but clear, and you had a plan. That was your way. Feel everything deeply, then channel it into action. You flew to Phoenix twice a month for the next year. Each time you packed, you'd talk me through your itinerary. "Mrs. Abernathy will feed you at 7 and 5. She'll change your water twice a day. Don't give her that look. She's doing us a favor." I'd sit on your suitcase in protest, and you'd gently move me, promising to be back soon. The house felt wrong without you, too still, too quiet. Mrs. Abernathy was kind, but she smelled like licorice and called me Kitty instead of my name. Still, I behaved because I knew you were doing important work. Being a big sister, which you once told me was your first and most enduring identity. When Margot went into remission, you brought me a new toy, a blue fish with crinkly fins. "We're celebrating," you told me, opening a can of the expensive salmon cat food you saved for special occasions. That night, you sat on the porch for a long time, looking at the stars. I joined you, and you stroked my back absent-mindedly. "I've been thinking about time, Jasper," you said softly. "How we measure it, how we use it, how it changes when you're afraid of losing someone." I didn't know then that you were also talking about me. The changes came gradually. First, I stopped jumping onto the counter. It was too high, the landing too jarring on my aging joints. Then I began sleeping more, finding warm patches of sunlight to ease the ache in my bones. You noticed, of course you did, and without fanfare, you rearranged things. A small set of fabric-covered steps appeared by the couch. My food dish was raised slightly. A softer bed materialized in the corner of the living room where afternoon sun made perfect golden squares. You never pitied me, and I loved you for that. You simply adapted our world to accommodate what was changing, treating it as the natural progression of things rather than a loss to be mourned. But I saw the way you'd watch me sometimes when you thought I was sleeping. The slight furrow between your brows, the way you'd note how much food remained in my bowl, how you'd gently feel along my spine when petting me, checking for more weight loss. The first time I couldn't make it to the litter box in time, I felt a shame so profound I hid under the bed for hours. You cleaned up without complaint, then sat on the floor near my hiding place, not coaxing me out, just being there. "Bodies betray us all eventually, old friend," you said quietly. "Nothing to be embarrassed about." After that, new litter boxes appeared around the house, shallow ones I could step into easily. You began measuring my water intake, adding a fountain that made the water more appealing. The vet visits became more frequent, and I endured them because you would hold me the entire time, your heartbeat against mine, steady and reassuring. Dr. Matthews was kind but honest. "Chronic kidney disease," she told you while I sat on the examination table, tail twitching in irritation at the indignity of it all. "It's common in older cats. We'll manage it with diet and medication, but it's progressive." You took notes in that small blue notebook you carried everywhere, asking questions in your teacher voice, clear, concise, expecting real answers. In the car afterward, you were quiet. Not the comfortable quiet we often shared, but a heavy one. When we got home, you sat with me on the couch for hours, just stroking my fur and telling me stories about your childhood, about the maple tree you used to climb, about the time you broke your arm falling from a tire swing, about how your mother would sing, "You Are My Sunshine," when you couldn't sleep. Our routine shifted again. Pills hidden in treats. Special food that I didn't particularly like but ate to please you. Subcutaneous fluids twice a week. An unpleasant procedure for both of us, but you would sit on the bathroom floor afterward, cradling me and apologizing, even though we both knew it was necessary. Through it all, you never treated me as less. I was still your confidant, your companion, your gentleman caller, as you sometimes jokingly called me. You still asked my opinion on your photography projects. You still read aloud passages from books that moved you, glancing up to see if I was listening. I always was. Last fall, when the leaves turned that particular shade of gold that made our living room glow in the afternoons, Margot came to visit. The cancer had returned, more aggressive this time. She'd lost weight, and her once thick hair was thin and brittle, but her laugh was the same, loud and unrestrained, so different from your measured chuckles. I was wary of her at first. She moved too quickly, spoke too loudly, but she brought me a catnip toy shaped like a taco, and she didn't try to pick me up or force attention on me, which I appreciated. At night, I'd hear you two talking in the kitchen, voices low but intense, occasionally broken by laughter or long silences. One evening, while you were preparing dinner, Margot sat next to me on the couch. She wasn't wearing her usual perfume, which made her less overwhelming to my sensitive nose. "You're a good boy, Jasper," she said, scratching gently behind my ears, "taking care of my big sister. She needs someone, you know. She's always been the caretaker, never the one being taken care of." I purred in response because she was right. You had spent your life looking after others, your students, your sister, me. But who looked after you? After Margot left, you seemed older somehow. You moved more carefully around the house, began taking afternoon naps, which I thoroughly approved of, called Dr. Matthews about that pain in your hip you'd been ignoring for months. I wondered if Margot had said something to you, some human wisdom exchanged in those late-night talks I'd observed but couldn't understand. That was when you started taking photographs of me. Not just casual snapshots like before, but deliberate, thoughtful portraits. You'd wait for the light to be just right, Arrange cushions so I'd be comfortable, speak to me in soft tones until I relaxed into whatever position you wanted. "Stay still, handsome," you'd murmur, and I would, watching you watch me through your camera lens. It felt important somehow, this documentation, like you were trying to preserve something precious before it slipped away. Winter came, bringing with it a stillness that seemed to settle into my bones. The medication stopped working as well. I began having good days and bad days, instead of just days. On the bad ones, you would sit on the floor next to my bed, grading papers or reading, occasionally reaching over to stroke my head or offer me water from a dropper. On good days, you'd carry me to the window so I could watch the birds at the feeder, your arms secure around me, careful not to squeeze too tight. In January, after a particularly difficult night for both of us, you called Dr. Matthews. I listened from my cushion as you spoke in that controlled voice you used when trying not to cry. "I don't want him to suffer," you said, "but I'm not sure. How do I know when it's time?" I couldn't hear Dr. Matthews' response, but whatever she said made you nod slowly, eyes closed. "Quality, not quantity," you repeated. "Yes, I understand." After that conversation, something changed. Not dramatically. You were never one for dramatic gestures, but there was a new intentionality to our days together. You'd open the blinds wide even on cloudy days, saying, "Let's get all the light we can, Jasper." You began working from home more often, grading papers at the kitchen table instead of at school. You'd read aloud not just snippets, but entire chapters, your voice washing over me like warm water. One weekend, you invited Mrs. Abernathy and Dr. Matthews over for tea. It seemed strange. You weren't usually one for entertaining. They sat in the living room, speaking in hushed tones while I dozed nearby. I caught fragments, arrangements, and "when the time comes," and "at home, if possible." I understood then what you were planning. You were gathering your courage, preparing for what we both knew was approaching. The photograph project intensified. You bought a new lens for your camera, spent hours editing the images on your computer. One day I heard the doorbell and a delivery person brought a large, flat package. After they left, you carefully opened it on the dining room table, a large bound book. From my spot on the chair, I could see it was filled with photographs of me sleeping in sun puddles, me sitting regally on the porch railing, me looking up at you with what you always called my philosopher's gaze. "Our story," you said simply, running your fingers over the cover. You showed me each page, telling me the story behind every picture, when it was taken, what we had been doing that day, what you were thinking when you captured the image. Your voice never broke, but your fingers trembled slightly as they turned the pages. The bad days began to outnumber the good. My appetite waned, despite your efforts with broths and warm food and all manner of temptations. Walking became difficult, then exhausting. The indignities mounted, messes I couldn't help, medicines I resisted, moments of confusion where I'd forget where I was, or even who you were. But you never showed frustration, only endless patience. Last Tuesday was unusually warm for March. You wrapped me in my favorite blanket, the soft green one that smells like both of us, and carried me out to the porch swing. We sat there for hours, watching the world. Birds were returning from their winter travels. The Bradford pear tree in the front yard had just begun to blossom. A neighbor walked by with her dog and waved, but didn't approach, perhaps seeing something in your expression that asked for privacy. "Do you remember," you said softly, "the thunderstorm during our first summer together? How you were so terrified you climbed onto my head while I was sleeping. I woke up with your entire body draped over my face like a living hat." I purred at the memory, or tried to. My purr had grown weak and raspy in recent months. Or the time I was sick with bronchitis and you refused to leave my side for 3 days. You'd pat my face with your paw whenever I started coughing, like you were checking if I was still breathing. You were quiet for a long time after that, just rocking us gently, your hands stroking rhythmically down my back. Then you said something I'll never forget. You've seen me through the hardest years of my life, Jasper. The divorce, Margot's illness, retirement, starting over in this old house with its creaky floors and stubborn windows. You've been the constancy I needed, my witness. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A perfect Connecticut spring evening, full of promise and renewal. You carried me back inside, moving carefully up the porch steps. You arranged me in my bed, made sure my water dish was nearby, checked that my blanket was properly tucked around me. Then you sat on the floor beside me, not speaking, just being there. As darkness fell, you finally whispered the words that broke both our hearts. You don't have to stay anymore, Jasper. If you need to go, I understand. But I didn't go. I couldn't leave you yet. Not when you still placed fresh water by my bed each morning with such hope. Not when you still searched my eyes for signs of the cat I used to be. Not when you needed me to witness this part of your story, too. The next day, Dr. Matthews came to the house. She examined me carefully while you stood nearby, arms crossed tightly as if holding yourself together. They spoke in low voices, and I heard phrases like not responding to treatment and quality of life and difficult decision. When Dr. Matthews left, you sat next to me on the couch, gently lifting me onto your lap. Your hands trembled slightly as they always did now. Another change we'd both pretended not to notice. "We have a little more time," you told me, voice steady despite the tears in your eyes. "Not long, but enough to say goodbye properly." And that's what we've been doing this past week, isn't it? Saying goodbye in 1,000 small ways. You've been bringing items to show me. The first collar I ever wore, now faded and frayed. The ridiculous Santa hat you put on me one Christmas, which I tolerated for exactly 7 minutes before removing with extreme prejudice. The feather toy I chased until it was nothing but a stick with memories attached. Yesterday, you sat beside me with your photo album, the one with pictures from before we met. You showed me images of yourself as a young teacher, standing proudly in front of your first classroom. You in hiking gear on some mountain trail, looking wind-blown and happy. You and Margot as children, gap-toothed and sunburned by a lake somewhere. "I wanted you to know who I was before," you explained. "All the pieces that made me the person who found you that day. I tried to tell you that I already knew you, not the details or dates or names, but the essence of you. The way you tap your fingers when thinking hard, how you talk to yourself while cooking, the particular sigh you make when reading something beautiful, your smell, books and lavender and that vanilla hand cream, the rhythm of your breathing when you finally fall asleep after a restless night. I know you are kind, but not soft. You have edges and opinions, and moments of glorious stubbornness. I know you prefer silence to small talk, but will listen endlessly to someone with a real story to tell. I know you still dance when you think no one is watching, though your movements are careful now, mindful of your hip. I know you sometimes stand in doorways before entering rooms, as if gathering courage for whatever comes next. I know you, Eleanora Mitchell. I have memorized you. And though I cannot write this letter for real, though my paws cannot hold pens and my thoughts must remain unwritten, I need you to know what these 15 years have meant to me. You saved me, yes, but more than that, you saw me. Not just a stray cat, not just a pet, but a being with feelings and fears and preferences. You respected my boundaries, you learned my language, you adjusted your life to make space for mine. I have watched you grow braver over the years we've shared. You started that photography blog you'd been talking about forever. You reconnected with old friends. You planted a garden, even though you'd always claimed not to have a green thumb. You began taking solo trips to the coast, bringing back shells and stories, and a lightness I hadn't seen before. Some would say you rescued me that rainy day behind Harmon's pharmacy, but I think we rescued each other. You gave me safety, comfort, care. I gave you companionship, constancy, and someone to come home to. A fair exchange, I'd say. The sun is rising now. I can see it through the window, turning the world golden once more. My vision isn't what it used to be, but I can still make out the cardinal that visits our feeder each morning. You've named him Mr. President because of his self-important strut. He's there now, bright against the pale blue sky. I know what tomorrow brings. I heard you on the phone with Dr. Matthews last night making arrangements. Your voice was calm, practical, only breaking once when you thought I was asleep. I heard you in the kitchen afterward, washing the same dish over and over, trying to steady your breathing. I wish I could tell you that it's okay, that these past few weeks of gradual decline have been harder than I want you to know, that while I've tried to hide it for your sake, there's a tiredness in me now that sleep doesn't touch. That I'm ready for what comes next, even if leaving you breaks my heart. I wish I could tell you what you've meant to me, how you became my entire world, my sun and moon and stars, how I've loved watching you move through your days, teaching, then retiring, reinventing yourself, finding new purpose, how proud I've been to be yours. But most of all, I wish I could thank you for the gentle hands that never hurt, for the patient voice that never shouted, for understanding my quirks and moods, for 15 years of belonging somewhere with someone who chose me every single day. The house is waking up now. I can hear you in the bathroom, running water, preparing for the day ahead, our last full day together. In a moment, you'll come check on me, try to tempt me with breakfast I probably won't eat, administer medicine that doesn't really help anymore, but that you give faithfully, because it might offer comfort. Tonight, you'll lie beside me on the couch instead of in your bed, because the bedroom is too far away now, and you're afraid of what might happen in the night if you're not near. You'll pretend to watch television, but really, you'll be watching me, memorizing me just as I've memorized you. You'll fall asleep with your hand on my side, feeling the rise and fall of my breathing. And tomorrow, when Dr. Matthews arrives with her kind eyes and gentle hands, I'll look at you one last time. I'll try to tell you with my gaze what I'm telling you in this impossible letter, that you have been the best part of my life, that you have nothing to regret or feel guilty about, that letting me go is your final act of love, and I recognize it for the gift it is. In my last moments, I'll remember our beginning, how you stopped in the rain for a creature you didn't know, how you came back day after day, how you promised it wasn't permanent and then gave me forever anyway. So please don't think of tomorrow as an ending. Think of it as me slipping into another room, one you can't see into yet, but will someday. In that room, I'll be waiting, young again, strong again, ready to greet you with the full-bodied purr you haven't heard in years. Until then, I want you to do something for me. Keep taking photographs, visit Margot often, plant those tomatoes you've been talking about, sit on the porch swing in the evenings and watch the light change. Notice things, the way you've always noticed things. Remember that you are still becoming, still unfolding, still alive with possibility. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the house feels too empty, I hope you'll imagine me there beside you, not with sadness, but with gratitude for all the ordinary days that strung together made an extraordinary life. My beloved Eleonora, my person, my home, thank you for everything. For the food and shelter, yes, but more for the dignity, the respect, the love without conditions or expectations, for seeing me at my worst and insisting on finding the best, for 15 years of belonging. I am not afraid of tomorrow. I am only grateful for yesterday and for today and for these final hours in the home we made together. Whatever comes next, I carry you with me, your voice, your touch, your heart that made space for mine, with all the love a cat can hold. Your Jasper P.S. Please give Mr. President extra seeds on Tuesdays. He pretends not to care, but I've seen how he watches for you. Some creatures just need to be seen, even when they act otherwise. I should know.